Yes, greetings. Things and times stay with you. Yeah, well, we've been off for a while because we don't feel good, you know. But we want to bring some, want to develop a conversation and bring uh, Al Haji Malachi Shabazz Al Mawali Malcolm X dissertation to the world. And I also want to bring in the conversation Imam Worthy Muhammad to the world because whilst we are listening to Nero and watch the imperialists, the colonialists, the supremacists showing a new century, we're arguing about FBAs and non-Africans and Africans and such nonsense. We're doing it in the diaspora. It's becoming contagious. Yeah? It's a disease that's been inflicted by one of our own persons. Yeah? Obviously, to us, it's a plot by the system, and because he's a hustler, he's undertook it. And others who are not so bright, but it's not their fault because, the spotlight is something that we seem to like. I mean, whether we get on TV or not, once the light is bright, we like it. We kind of have this nature for it, this feeling. So we want to go into this, and then we will stop, pause, and kind of stimulate the faculties, because we are sensible people only when our backs are against the wall. Only when our backs against the wall. And that's what Marcus Garvey said, that we would only know ourselves, come to truly know ourselves and do something about it. Not because we don't know ourselves, but we don't do nothing about anything. We just talk about everything. And it seems that the host Negroes infection is still with us because we always seem to know everything a man is doing or going to do, and yet still we don't have no alternative. Make sense out of that. You understand? And this starts in America without African Caribbean involved, because the history of revolutionists is Caribbean, is African stock. But we have to big up ourselves because it's Caribbean heritage. It's either the fathers that was from the came from the plantation in the Caribbean, or the mother. If not both. You understand? So African Americans, it's no stain on you, but you need to stop and listen. Stop talking so much. Stop and listen. Because the only persons you're browbeating is yourself, which is ourselves. It seems that we compete against our one another, rather than to listen. And the problem is, those before us are elders now. And if we don't hear from them and understand the trials and tribulation and all the attempts that they have made, and what their vision has always been for us, what is it that we're knowing? Nothing. Nothing. Throughout the Caribbean, everybody watch football. And when Friday, Saturday, and Sunday come, everybody go to church, some form of church. The dedication to play an amusement. It's astonishing. It's astonishing. But who's been teaching us? The Caucasian. Evening. Greetings. We're there with you.
Tonight, during the few moments that we have, we're going to have a little chat, like brothers and sisters and friends, and probably enemies too, about the prospect for peace or prospect for freedom in 1965. If you notice, I almost slipped there and said peace. Actually, you can't separate peace from freedom. No one can be at peace unless he has his freedom. You can't separate the two. And this is the thing that makes 1965 so explosive and so dangerous. The people in this country who in the past have been at peace and been peaceful were that way only because they didn't know what freedom was. They let somebody else define it for them. But today, 1965, you find those who have not had freedom and not in a position to define freedom. They're beginning to define it for themselves now. And as they get in a position intellectually to define freedom for themselves, they see that they don't have it. And it makes them less peaceful or less inclined toward peace.
Malcolm X opens this speech by confronting the false sense of peace in America. He questions who really benefits from the promises of freedom. His tone is sharp because the stakes are high. What he describes in 1965 still hits today: inequality, frustration, and the urgency to act. As the speech continues, he turns up the pressure. The next clips show him naming names, breaking down systems, and warning what's coming if things don't change.
So in discussing this topic tonight, prospects for freedom in 1965, I think we have to go back at least 12 years or 10 years to the time when the struggle of the black man in America began to be projected into the limelight, not only in this country but throughout the world. It started primarily with the Supreme Court decision, so-called desegregation decision, and I should say so-called desegregation, so-called decision, because there has been some doubt as to what they really handed down. One of the main ingredients in the struggle of the black man in America for the past 12 years has been the black Muslim movement. No one can deny the role that the black Muslim movement has played in America during the past 12 years, has been one of the main ingredients in the stepped up militancy on the part of black people throughout this country. No matter what direction the black Muslim movement itself was headed in, no matter what its own organizational philosophy was, and no matter what other people thought about it, no matter what their personal opinions were of the black Muslim movement, still it cannot be denied that that movement, because of its uncompromising stand and uncompromisingly militant approach to things, forced other civil rights organizations to be more militant than they normally would have been, and forced many of the civil rights leaders definitely to be more militant than they ever would have thought of being. So the militancy of the black man in America during the past 10 years, in my opinion, can be traced largely to the existence and presence of the movement, which I'm referring to now for purpose of identification as the black Muslim movement. Its contribution to the black struggle for freedom in this country was militancy. It made many of our people dare to get loud for the first time in 400 years. Many of the black leaders of the civil rights movement dare to get loud for the first time. I mean really loud, for the first time in nearly 400 years of our being in this country. They got more militant than they intended to be, and they made many of the people become more militant than they intended for the people to be. It had a chain reaction effect that actually got out of control somewhat. because the leaders themselves never intended and never do intend for our people to go too far. Their primary purpose in our midst has always been to contain our struggle, not lead our struggle. Proof of which, seldom are they seen until the irresponsible elements in the black community begin to explode. And then they go all the way around the country to grab one of them from wherever he's traveling and bring him in to cool things down, to tell us to be cool, or tell us to take it easy, don't rock the boat. This is their function, this is their role. At least it has been up until recent times. They never have been put in the role that they're in with the intention by the one who puts them there of them leading us into any uncompromising and militant struggle. But the existence of some of the Muslim groups and the black nationalist groups that couldn't be controlled by the power structure downtown, and I only use the expression power structure downtown to keep from calling it what it actually is. These nationalist elements actually serve their purpose in that sense. They gave respectability to the civil rights groups and gave acceptability to the civil rights groups. 10 years ago or more, the NAACP was looked upon as a radical, leftist, almost subversive movement. And then when the black Muslim movement came along, the power structure said, thank the Lord for Roy Wilkins and the NAACP. In the Congo also, the People's Republic of the Congo, headquartered at Stanleyville, fought the war for freedom against Chombe, who was an agent of Western imperialism. And by Western imperialism, I mean that which is headquartered in the United States in the State Department. In 1964, this government, subsidizing Chombe, the murderer of Lumumba, and Chombe's mercenaries, hired killers from South Africa, along with the former colonial power Belgium, dropped paratroopers on the people of the Congo, used Cubans that they had trained to drop bombs on the people of the Congo with American-made planes. To no avail. The struggle is still going on, and America's man Chombe is still losing. All of this in 1964. Now, in speaking like this, it doesn't mean that I'm anti-American. I'm not. I'm not anti-American or un-American. And I'm not saying that to defend myself, because if I was that, I'd have a right to be that after what America has done to us. This government should be lucky that our people aren't anti-American. They should get down on your hands and knees every morning and thank God that 22 million black people have not become anti-American. Because if anybody has the right to be anti-American, we have. You've given us every right to it. And the whole world would side with us if we became anti-American. You know, that's something to think about. But we're not anti-American. But we see we are anti or against what America is doing wrong in other parts of the world as well as here. And what she did in the Congo in 1964 is wrong. It's criminal. Criminal. And what she did to the American public, to get the American public to go along with it, is criminal. What she's doing in South Vietnam is criminal. She's causing American soldiers to be murdered every day, killed every day, die every day, for no reason at all. That's wrong. Now, you're not supposed to be so blind with patriotism that you can't face reality. Wrong is wrong no matter who does it or who says it. I'm anti-American for saying that, then Wayne Morris is anti-American. Church, senator from somewhere out there, is anti-American. A whole lot of them in Washington, D.C. is anti-American.
This was 61 years ago. There was no member, there was no teachers, there's no instructors, including Elijah Muhammad himself and his brother, anyone that was speaking like Malcolm. Not his voice, but the direction was the human rights and dignity within the African and the African world, at home in America, throughout the Caribbean, the diaspora, and on the continent itself, and the realization of the ills that's been inflicted upon us. But to make us not excited, but informed with a direction. The direction is to develop self and have freedom within self, yearning for international freedom, universal freedom, human freedom, dignity, liberation. That was Malcolm. No other teachers, instructors within the Nation of Islam spoke from that premise. Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture, was the closest, and he was drafted into Martin Luther King camp. He was the closest. He didn't just came like that. He was always like that. He was a panther. Before there was panther, he was a panther. He was an activist, very intelligent activist. And I'm going to keep using the word intelligent because for people who just follow, there's something wrong with their faculties. And there's nothing wrong with following, but that's what all one can do. There is so much wrong with it. And that's the difference between Alma Wali and all of us. We're just hearers and followers. We're not sheep, neither goats, but we're dumb. And that's harsh for some people. Really? What have we accomplished in 61 years? What have we, not you all, we, I, myself, and my family included, accomplished? Oh, yeah, a job, we've got to go to university, us here in Europe and you there in America, oh, MBA and all these millions and ain't got nothing, and the majority of the people are suffering because they made so much money and the IRS took it and drugs took it, and we're on the street and my wife divorced me but she didn't look like me, and and it goes on, playing amusement. And then when you calculate, the trillions that we've made out of playing amusement, music and sport, NBA, R&B, and whatever next. The trillions. And what we got? What we got? What have we got? And have we reached out to Africa? Have we reached out to the diaspora? What kind of summits do we have? Because we have some real beautiful, educational, bright people. And we've lost so many of those generations, and we're going to lose another lot. Now we're talking about AI and this and so forth and so, and we're going to lose them because they are talented, and they will get, so many of them will get employment, or they're already working in that area, and perhaps they're the ones that mature these ideas. Who knows? Huh? Because like a lot of African Americans don't know that what is called internet was developed and brought into fruition by an African, a Nigerian family. You just keep watching Bill Gates and Apple. But you're there in America. You don't forget Julius Erving. You don't forget Alex English, or do you? You don't forget Magic Johnson, neither Michael Jordan. Why is that? Why is that? And all those other guys that play, what, gridiron football. I don't know their names. And the baseballers. And the athletes. Oh my gosh, the athletes. Oh Lord, there's so many of them. Breaking records, running away from the Caucasian, running away from the Ku Klux Klan and everybody else. And we're still running now and entertaining the Caucasian world. Are we dumb? Deliberately dumb? 61 years. No one speaks like Menachem Shabazz, Al-Mawali, Malcolm X. Why is that? And his prison, he activated his faculties. How do I mean? He read what? The dictionaries. Recharge his sensibility and his sensitivity. Oh yes, that's what he did. So this claim, which is valued, that Elijah Muhammad made Malcolm, are you crazy? Elijah Muhammad inspired him. Let's get the words right. And that's not demoting or taking anything away from the teacher and the instructor. That's what he did. But I, as an individual, if I don't put the work in, if I'm not obedient and disciplined, I would accomplish nothing. And that's what that's what we have done. We have accomplished nothing. Because we wait for leaders. We wait for instructors. We love being led. And we want to impose what little we know and what we know on ourselves. And we've just become argumentative in the barbershop, rare, and in front of the TV, and get divorced because we ignored our partners, we ignored our wives, we ignore our children. And no wonder our boys do what they do, because they see us. They see us. How dumb we are. Totally argumentative. And then we throw a tantrum because the Lakers lost. What the hell difference is going to make in our lives? And just to make it worse, he didn't even put $1 on the Lakers. So, what was the argument and the fight about? And then our women, we don't protect them. They earn the extras on the street. They earn the extras by peddling for some other person that looks just like us, pimping for them or trading for them. But Islam comes and say, respect the woman. Make the woman, request the woman to be dressed modestly. You call it restrictive. Where did you get the word from? The same people that we decide to follow and listen to and obey is the word he used to tell you to use that against ourselves who want you to do right. So what is that person called? It's a devil. Look at their history. Have they brought good to the world? Pure destruction. Then they painted a picture on the word religion. Everyone outside, which is just us, says that religion caused problem. If that be the case, why are they using it? But they're not using the religion that they propagate to us. They give us a theology. And we keep barking up this thing with Jesus and whoever that is. And then we don't know any African language, but we don't look at Africa with respect. With respect. Because if Africa being our mother, we should honor mother and try to find mother and fall in love with mother. And to do that is to learn how to communicate with mother. But we haven't done that. We haven't. We know more about what happens on the basketball court, the football court, and even the boxing ring. So check our arrogance. Because it's arrogance because we deny ourselves. And in that, how many so-called master leaders try to rival Malak al-Shabazz, Al-Mawali, Malcolm X? So many. And many of them went in the nation or came out of the nation and set up their own thing, which became cults. And just not too long ago, less than 5 years, a number have been jailed for all sorts of badness. For all sorts. And the same people who talk about consciousness on a day by day, week by week, and selling all kinds of memorabilia, etc., embraced all those people. They were all together. A crooked syndicate. A crooked syndicate that is being taught how to reshape themselves if the worst actually ever happens. And they've done that. They've reshaped themselves. They recontented themselves as like nothing has happened. And what have we, the public, have done? We haven't shut them out. We haven't kicked them out. We haven't put them in the African street man's court. There was a time when we would have arrested them and put them on trial in the community. That hasn't happened. Because these people are backed by COINTEL programs. Many of them have been released. Many of them behave a particular way inside. Many of them be sorted by the FBI and whoever else. And then being trained to a degree. To do what? Offset us. Offset our children. Plague our women. Confuse our communities. Where there are people striving to make sense of what isn't happening and what should happen. That's our elders. Leaving a lot of them with heart problems. Leaving a lot of them with diabetes, etc., etc. Needing support. And mentally stressed because they can just see pure disaster. And then to be listening to the news and watching what plays out. So much of us are killing each other. Have more guns. No sense. Get young women killing young women killing young men killing everybody. Wiping out families. And we want to sit down on the World Wide Web, on Popcast and whatever hell you want to call it, and this same thing that I'm on, and speak garbage and don't show no form of dignity. But we're representing our little space, not realizing that the whole world, because we don't care, the whole world is hearing us, watching us. Because some of them, their platforms, their presentation, their imagery is fantastic. But they don't have parents. Which they do, but they don't care. So how they behave, how they speak, and the profanity that they use, they're not ashamed. There's no pride, no form of dignity. And you want to compare and compete with Malcolm, Malaki Shabazz al-Mawali, and then you want to try to discourage people from him by saying something about Islam and him? Are you crazy? Really, are you crazy? You're dumb, all of you. We are dumb. 61 years ago. This is what we're doing. We're taking from some of this, hey, we have some exclusive as well, from some of Malaki Shabazz's speeches. And analoging them and then digitalizing, because we're pausing and, like a good lecturer will do, highlight the words that's most applicable right here and now. Right here and now. To try to inspire the mind to say, wait a minute, did my grandfather said these things? What have we done, Dad? What have we done, Mom? That's where we're going. That's where we're going. We're not going to be talking about the NBA. We're not going to be speaking about what is good for our sisters, and then next thing we finish up talking about boxing. Or we finish up speaking about gridiron. Or we finish up speaking about something that's irrelevant to what was put up, because all you're dealing with is content. You want to grab an audience. That's how wicked and terrible we are. Because we have to give thought to those things. So none of the headings work. It's just to captivate an interest. You know what the problems are, because where did you get those headings from? But what you cannot do is project, because there's no solution, and you know that. But you don't even ask us in the public arena to come in, because you know what you do? You go and talk about your football, you're going to talk about your boxing, you're going to talk about your basketball, you're going to talk about some trial that should have happened, without saying, why did these children go out, let their parents let them do X, Z, and Y, and they just go missing, or they don't come back, and then when they're discovered, they're saying, yo, you know what, they committed suicide. Oh, first, no, they commit suicide. Next thing you know, they drown and blah, blah, blah. Yeah? But then we don't hear nothing about organ harvesting or anything. We don't. And then we have these so-called hip-hop artists, alleged, that is filthy. And who are they filthy on? Themselves as men, but mostly the women. And then we have church ministers involved, not reforming and trying to condemn, no, involved and helping them to hide up their calamities. Sad. Then churchgoers now, making millions, and yet still the community that they actually come from is in poverty. So they don't live in that community. But they're making millions. The churches, the black church, the African church, African American church, the FBA church, millions. And then the Muslims are saying, let's build schools, let's build hospitals, let's build banks, let's have our own farms, let's build supermarkets, let's cleanse ourselves and shape the districts that we're living within. Someone told you that's a problem, and the someone that told you that didn't look like yourself. But yet still you go, Arab, Arab, Arab. Who asked you about Arabs? When your great-grandfather was an Arab, or is an Arab. And if you ask you what's the definition, you just say Saudis. Define an Arab. And why you so this and that about. And the very people who are killing us and putting out all of us in some detention place. There's so many millions of us in prisons, working on the plantation, being degraded day by day, hour by hour. "61 years ago. And many are on death row. And in the 2000s, they come up after being there from the 60s. Strapping, look very healthy, etc., etc. And the electric chair just takes them, or whatever method they decide to execute. It's a shame. Then we had one you call the master teacher, all of you. Speaking a lot about Kemet. Speaking a lot about Shambhala. Speaking a lot about people, some form of creatures or whatever in space. And they couldn't even take an airplane and fly across the United States. But yet still they're going to tell me something about outer space. And that master teacher has corrupted so much people, has influenced, not corrupted, so much people, and leave a lot of them in mental health problems, with mental health problems. And all that they have achieved in terms of the land space was taken back by the system. Not taken back, was taken by the system. So even the accomplishment of owning so much acreage of land, there's nothing to show but the ills. And now we have varying amount of internet programs that still represent that person and his organization. That shows you how weak mentally and intellectually we are. It shows. Then here comes a new brand, and it's called the Israelites. But they're not new, because that same person that I'm speaking about just now, he did all of that and more. Passion was his desire, because he dabbled in the music and the production. His outfit was called Passion and something else. But we taught him Islam. We did. And he created, or he inspired the people. He didn't create, he inspired the people to take the title of Ansar Allah, the beloved of Allah, the beloved of the Prophet, but one of the most sincere followers of the Prophet, Ansars. And then just to pull his cloak and just to correct him a little, the man just went into space and created something else. And along his journey, he created 3 other things outside of the Ansars. So now what we're left with here right now, the Nubians, not the Nubians, the Israelites and ISUP or whatever, all of those are offshoots of his. They can't deny it. Even those that's gone to Nimona or whatever, they were students of his. They were hearers of his. What am I getting at? What have we done? What have we done? And so much of us are so in love with what is called America. 250 years since the independence, what have we achieved? Let alone the 61 years of Menachem Shabazz Al-Mawali, Malcolm X. It's a shame. It's a shame. Too much. Mom? Easy, Daddy.
So I'm just telling you what I read the good senators said. Also in 1964, China exploded her bomb, which was a scientific breakthrough for the oppressed people in China who suffered for a long time. I, for one, was very happy to hear that the great people of China were able to display their scientific advanced knowledge of science to the point where a country that is so backward, as this country keeps saying, and so, behind everybody and so poor, could come up with an atomic bomb. Why, I had to marvel at that. It made me realize that poor people can do it as well as rich people. So all of these little advances were made by oppressed people in other parts of the world during 1964. These were tangible gains. And the reason that they were able to make these gains, they realized that power was the magic word. Power against power. Power in defense of freedom is greater than power in behalf of tyranny and oppression. Because power, real power, comes from conviction. And it produces action, uncompromising action. It also produces insurrection against oppression. This is the only way you end oppression, with power. Power never takes a back step, only in the face of more power. It doesn't do it power doesn't back up in the face of a smile, or in the face of a prayer, or in the face of some kind of non-violent loving action. Power, it's not the nature of power to back up in the face of anything but some more power. And this is what the people have realized in Southeast Asia, in the Congo, in Cuba, in other parts of the world. That power recognizes only power. And all of them who realize this have made gains. Now here in America, it's different. When you compare our strides in 1964 with strides that have been made forward by people elsewhere all over the world, only then can you appreciate the great double cross experienced by black people here in America in 1964. The power structure started the new year out the same way they started that out in Washington the other day. Only now they call it, what's that, the Great Society? The Great Society. And last year, this 1964 was supposed to be the year of promise. They opened up the new year in Washington, D.C., and in the City Hall, and in Albany, talking about the year of promise. Promised that black people would make advances in education, would get better schools.
So we want to stop right there and resume, God willing, tomorrow. And remember to remind myself, we stopped at power. But you know what's important to me? Is that technology is creative thinking. And then to have a willingness, and not courage, a willingness to take that thinking and mature it, give it birth. As science. And giving birth is technology. Our children have just been supported to be scientific and to advance maths in relation to geometry in sports, athletics, etc., in sports. Because if you're not just physically endowed, but if you don't have a concentrated effort and then a physical, and put the two together, the concentration and the physicality, which is then called the person is then looked upon as one who have athletical ability, and then to refine that in the pursuit that one is interested within, whether it's basketball, whether it's football, or whether it's athletics. Look at the principles and look at what the requirements are. We do that mentally and physically with ease. Then we go back to the laboratories, and you see with those faculties, you see our young men that are referred to as nerds because they're not in the hip-hop groove, and our young women who do not display their bodies, and they're referred to also as nerds. They're in these labs. They're analyzing. They're studying. And they're using maths and theory. They're using tabulators and transforming tabulators to apply with what their thinkings are. A tabulator is a computer, man, or a calculator. They're having discussions with like-minded peoples, whether they're Chinese, whether they're Japanese, whether they're Malaysians, whether they're Arabs. Regardless, as human beings, once they got an interest, they're pursuing these great dialogues. But the institution called government branches are also have also and will also make themselves relevant to support such. To support such. What have we done or accomplished in 61 years? How many of our students, some of our young people, have we acknowledged and have we sponsored? Yeah, how many? And how many of those athletes have we motivated and encouraged to sponsor our prudently academical young people, courageous minded, thinking young people? What have we done there? What have we done there? Now we want to demote culture by thinking that everything we do is culture. How crazy the intelligence, or lacking of intelligence, we are. That's why we haven't introduced ourselves to our mothers at home and show respect to our mothers at home, because we would have known the 5 principles of what culture is made of. It's not made. It's the technicality. I'm trying to find a word to source that. Because if we don't have the moral dignity as its premise, what culture are we talking about? What are we talking about? Our human presentation is part of our moral dignity. And then our health, which is our food, becomes the next stage. And it goes and it goes. It's not about hip hop, not about reggae, not about dancehall. Where'd you get this thinking from? What is it that sustains us? What does it identify us? What is it that's courageous about us? What is it that is going to make our children recognize the foundation and would not sway no matter what from that? When you're playing games with calling your culture hip hop and this and that, hey, what kind of nonsense is that? And none of the faculties you're claiming. What excellence of any of the faculties we're claiming? Because you don't know nothing about the motherland. You don't. Mathematics is us, not Pythagoras. It's us. Algebra is us. And much, much more. If you see the history of our curiosity within growth and development in life in Africa, then you Americans should be on your knees and seek forgiveness, or on your faces, something, because you're off base. You don't know what's going on. But you think you're the center of everything. You're not. Not you. America is not. America is a murderous platform. Evil. Nothing good has come out of that. Know your history and know their culture. And stop playing games. Puritans have become murderers. Amish is about the only thing that's left. The Amish. The Amish community is about the only thing that's left. That don't go around and wanting to butcher anybody. Sit with them and ask them. How did their people get like that? What is it that they drank or ate that you didn't? May we meet tomorrow and continue because we have about 45 minutes left of this, and then we have 2:45s to go. So, God willing, we'll be with you again. Guidance. Salaam alaikum.